Mario with MIA Microflight. Today is Tuesday, August 19, 2025. In this video, I'm going to be talking about some of these bending tools and jigs for bending steel rule, which is used in the steel rule die business. A lot of leather fabricators, people that make wallets and leather goods, as well as jewelry enthusiasts that like to bend metals, for rings and bracelets. They use similar tools, to these bending tools that I created. These are my own bending tools. Everything that you see that I show is my own stuff. And so this is not to, I created a lot of these things for, the do-it-yourselfer, people that don't want to spend, thousands of dollars in more professional tools. If you're in the business of, making steel rule die, then it justifies buying a tool that professionally bends, the steel rule, to make steel rule dies that you're going to sell it to companies or individuals. But I'm not in that business, and this is not meant to replace that. It's not meant to put, the steel rule die manufacturers that make the professional tools out of business. A lot of the tools that I've created here are very, if I may say so myself, very clever, very simple tools. I call a lot of these tools the MIA KISS tools, which stands for keep it simple, silly, or if you want to be mean, keep it simple, stupid. And as the name implies, it's to keep things very simple. And there are so many ways to do these things. As the saying goes, there's many ways to skin a cat, whatever that means. You wouldn't typically skin a cat, in the real in the real terms, literally. But as the saying, as that saying goes, it references to there are many ways to do things, and if you think and think and think and just keep thinking on how to simplify these things, eventually, if you're that type of individual that likes to think and kind of look at things from various angles, like I do, you're going to come up with very, very inexpensive and very simple and very clever setups. Like I said, I'm not an ego-driven person that likes to toot his own horn, but sometimes you have to do that, because if you don't, other people will take advantage of that. The minute I show something, is I've done many modifications to products in the radio control business. A lot of companies have lifted all my stuff without any credit. And so the minute I show something that is very unique, it's most likely going to be lifted by somebody or some company, some unscrupulous individual or some unscrupulous companies, as I have mentioned in some videos that and recently I did a video with respect to an auto gyro that I made some modifications, and clearly made those modifications 11 years ago in this company that came up with a new version. They had the audacity to contact me and tell me that they were going to give me credit, blah blah blah, that they wanted to work with me, that they liked my stuff, that they saw a lot of stuff, my products, everything, and then they lifted that with no credit whatsoever. Unscrupulous people, unscrupulous individual, the guy that contacted me, unscrupulous company, if the company is behind that. So I have no issues with calling people that are unscrupulous out when it's necessary. But like I said, a lot of the stuff that I come up with is most likely going to be lifted. If sometimes it's just justifies to willingly give the designer or sell the product. The minute I sell a product, basically, and it goes to the hands of somebody, they already know, how I'm doing, how I'm thinking of that. And if that person is unscrupulous or works for a company that's buying my products just to see how I'm doing these things, it's probably going to lift it. But I'm not the type of person that stays quiet when it comes to those things. If I catch something, you're going to be certain that I'm going to be calling you out, and I'm going to be pointing those things, as I have done, since I started MIA Microflight, since back 1999 when I established MIA Microflight. I don't remain quiet when it requires speaking out for things that are justified and balanced, and should be, the right thing to do. So this is just a small portion of the tools. I am working on another tool. There's going to be a retrofit for one of those mini benders, or not called mini benders, they're called universal benders. So I'm working on a modification of that. It's another clever gizmo, or another clever setup that I came up with, so that I can bend steel rule die to do these types of steel rule to do these types of dies. These are dies that you use, to cut cardboard, fabric, plastics. I've even done some of these to cut thin aluminum. Back in the day when I was manufacturing the MIA Robin 280 helicopter, one of the very first micro helicopters that I produced, before anybody was producing micro helicopters, my blades were done with aluminum, this spring type of aluminum that I sourced out after, after a lot of thought and a lot of time invested in researching that. To come up with an aluminum that was not easily too bendable, but it had some spring to it. And so I had a company do a steel rule die for me. They were a little uneasy about that because they never, the steel rule die is not really designed for cutting through aluminum or metals. It's more for leather work, leather goods, fabrics, paper, cardboard, that kind of stuff. And so, but this company worked with me, and this is where I learned about steel rule dies. I got to see their equipment, how they were doing these things, and so I worked with them, and I said, if we do this, if we modify some of these little details, we may be able to cut these aluminum blades for me for the micro helicopter, and eventually it worked. So I worked with the company. They were nice enough to also work with me and trust my judgment and my experience, testing some of these things on my own. And I was able to get some of these very nice blades, which I anodized the blades. Also, I used to sell them anodized along with some other parts. Of course, aluminum blades are, they're no contender for a injection molded part or a carbon part. In later years, that people were making, carbon fiber blades. But at the time when I did that, it was a way to cut costs and come up with a nice product, very unique product. So I have shown those blades. I have shown my helicopters in previous videos. So if you're interested in that, you can also search for that. You'll probably find those. But anyway, this is I wanted to talk a little bit about these tools right here. That's a tool that I did for doing this kind of bends right here. And as I said in some other videos, before anybody was showing the application of 3D printing for doing this type of work, I already had done a lot of this work a lot earlier. And you'll probably see my videos. They go way back before anybody was doing any individual or companies, because there are companies that use 3D printing for making dies, for bending metals and things of that nature. So, but I was doing that a lot sooner. I can safely say that with reassurance, because at the time when I started doing a lot of stuff, I searched to see who else was doing something similar, and I could not find anybody. And that's basically how I approach these things. A lot of the stuff that I do, I go online and I see, I try to find who else has done something similar, to see if anybody has done that. If somebody has done that, is selling a tool, cheaper than something that's not going to break your leg or your wallet, it's I am for that. But if I can't find it, which a lot of stuff that I've developed that I showed in videos like this one, has started at a point where I have to do it from scratch. Mario, once again, stay tuned for more.